What is the difference between a string and a byte string? I am working with a library which returns a byte string, bytes, and I need to convert this to a string. Is there actually a difference between those two things? How are they related, and how can I do the conversion?
Assuming Python 3. In Python 2, this difference is a little less well defined. A string is a sequence of characters, Unicode code points. These are an abstract concept, and can't be directly stored on disk. A byte string is a sequence of, unsurprisingly, bytes, things that can be stored on disk. The mapping between them is an encoding. There are quite a lot of these, and infinitely many are possible, and you need to know which applies in the particular case in order to do the conversion, since a different encoding may map the same bytes to a different string. Once you know which one to use, you can use the .decode method of the byte string to get the right character string from it as above. For completeness, the .encode method of a character string goes the opposite way.
The only thing that a computer can store is bytes. To store anything in a computer, you must first encode it, i.e. convert it to bytes. For example, if you want to store music, you must first encode it using MP3, WAV, etc. If you want to store a picture, you must first encode it using PNG, JPEG, etc. If you want to store text, you must first encode it using ASCII, UTF-8, etc. MP3, WAV, PNG, JPEG, ASCII and UTF-8 are examples of encodings. An encoding is a format to represent audio, images, text, etc. in bytes. In Python, a byte string is just that, a sequence of bytes. It isn't human readable. Under the hood, everything must be converted to a byte string before it can be stored in a computer. On the other hand, a character string, often just called a string, is a sequence of characters. It is human readable. A character string can't be directly stored in a computer. It has to be encoded first, converted into a byte string. There are multiple encodings through which a character string can be converted into a byte string, such as ASCII and UTF-8. The above Python code will encode the string I am a string using the encoding ASCII. The result of the above code will be a byte string. If you print it, Python will represent it as b am a string. Remember, however, that byte strings aren't human readable, it's just that Python decodes them from ASCII when you print them. In Python, a byte string is represented by a b, followed by the byte string's ASCII representation. A byte string can be decoded back into a character string, if you know the encoding that was used to encode it. The above code will return the original string I am a string. Encoding and decoding are inverse operations. Everything must be encoded before it can be written to disk, and it must be decoded before it can be read by a human.
Note: I will elaborate more my answer for Python 3 since the end of life of Python 2 is very close. In Python 3, bytes consist of sequences of 8-bit unsigned values, while str consists of sequences of Unicode code points that represent textual characters from human languages. Even though bytes and str seem to work the same way, their instances are not compatible with each other, i.e., bytes and str instances can't be used together with operators like is greater than and plus. In addition, keep in mind that comparing bytes and str instances for equality, i.e. using equals equals, will always evaluate to false even when they contain exactly the same characters. Another issue when dealing with bytes and str is present when working with files that are returned using the open built-in function. On one hand, if you want to read or write binary data to slash from a file, always open the file using a binary mode like airbay or wb. On the other hand, if you want to read or write Unicode data to slash from a file, be aware of the default encoding of your computer, so if necessary pass the encoding parameter to avoid surprises. In Python 2, str consists of sequences of 8-bit values, while Unicode consists of sequences of Unicode characters. One thing to keep in mind is that str and Unicode can be used together with operators if str only consists of 7-bit ASCII characters. It might be useful to use helper functions to convert between str and Unicode in Python 2, and between bytes and str in Python 3.
Let's have a simple one-character strings and encode it into a sequence of bytes. For the purpose of this example, let's display the sequence of bytes in its binary form. Now it is generally not possible to decode the information back without knowing how it was encoded. Only if you know that the UTF-8 text encoding was used, you can follow the algorithm for decoding UTF-8 and acquire the original string. You can display the binary number 101,100,001 back as a string.